welcome to WROL Broadcast. I am Hate Mail. With me today we have Mr. Zubaz.
Good evening or good afternoon, wherever you're at.
And the Big Mac Attack Burger. We may have just lost him again.
Oh, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Hi, what's up?
All right, and we are talking Steel and Eradicator, who are the new tunes of this month, which I've got to watch quite a few of Burger's videos. He had a little more than usual this time. But before we get into their lore, let's just get a quick... actually, let's get into the lore first. Why don't you tell us a little bit about... Let's start with Steel, since he's the new tune, Zubaz.
All right, I'll talk a little bit about Steel. So Steel, John Henry Irons, both these characters, they came out in the Reign of the Superman event. They kind of existed in other forms before that, but that was when they were first well known. For those of you who are worried about spoilers, this is an event that happened 20, 30 years ago at this point. So Superman dies. I hate to break it to you. But Superman dies, and in his absence, they pop up 4 new Supermen that are supposed to kind of embody one of his traits. You had Cyborg Superman, Superboy, and then the 2 new characters this month, Steel and Eradicator. The death of Superman, there's been a ton of ink spilled about that particular event, whether it was like a really wonderful, brilliantly done thing in the 90s, or if it just ruined comics for like a decade and a half because everybody just wanted to kill a character at that point. But we did get Steel and we did get Eradicator out of that particular event. It is a fun comic. If anybody wants to go back and read that, it's available everywhere. So Steel, he's supposed to kind of embody the Superman everyman. He was based on a combination of John Henry, the American folklore character, and Iron Man over at Marvel Comics. And they did a great job with him in his initial concept. I personally have a little bit of a soft spot for Steel. Everybody knows that I'm living in New Orleans. I've been here more than half my life at this point. But I was actually born and raised in New Jersey. And John Henry, the folklore who is based on a man from New Jersey. John Henry Irons, the Steel character, he spends most of the 90s working out of Jersey City, New Jersey. And Shaquille O'Neal, who portrayed Steel, was also born and raised in New Jersey. So Steel, he was a very popular character. He came at a time when there really weren't a ton of mainstream African-American characters in comics, period, but especially at DC. He's known for kind of embodying being a genius with having some strength and brute strength, usually from his power suit and his hammer. He's a typical, he's like Cyborg. He's like the Atom, where they get their powers from their suit. And, I think that kind of spills over into the kit that they gave him in DCL.
Yeah, I really like the Reign of Superman series, the whole Death of Superman event. I mean, I think I was early teenager at that time, and I remember my dad going everywhere trying to find a copy of Death of Superman for, I think, Christmas. Was it around Christmas time? It was either my birthday or Christmas or something. Yeah, I think it was Christmas. And, it was a fun read. It was just a really exciting time in comic books, but that was when comic books were really kind of at their peak.
It was a hot time for comics. The other thing was, yes, there had been a few dead characters. There had nobody been on the level, though, of killing off Superman. And it became a mainstream thing. Like, people, they reported it on the news that Superman, that they were publishing that he was dead. And it drove this insane sales because people thought that these issues were going to be extremely collectible. They also thought that was really it. And these were people that weren't as familiar with comic books and how they kill and bring back characters on a regular basis. So those comic books now are actually almost entirely worthless because there are so many of them and so many people bought them.
And my dad had to drive all the way to Georgia from Florida to get a copy.
Wow. My father actually, he has an entire case unsealed of the actual Death of Superman comic, and it is worth next to nothing. So.
Did you read those, Berger? I'm sure you did.
Oh yeah, no, I had that entire series. I mean, several years like in front and behind it, and I still have some of the it came in like the black plastic wrap, so like the special edition. I think that's part of the reason why they're not worth much because they had so many different iterations of it right then and really capitalized on it. But yeah, it was great. I always liked John Henry. I think it was he kind of growing up reading Superman and being like a big fan, like that was kind of a way that you could kind of see yourself, being that, normal human that's stepping up to do great things and kind of carry that mantle and stuff. And so, yeah, I think it was always a really good read.
So speaking of carrying the mantle, how well is he carrying the mantle on DC Legends, Berger?
So that's, so I wish, I know we were talking about it earlier. I wish that, he was hitting a little bit harder. The kit does some cool things. Like I like the fact that, he can stun, he has a counterattack, he can shield, can provide shield to others. So I like those things, but whenever like when you're using them in the, in the game, like, at least the way I play, like I don't like his counterattack does not hit hard. The AoE that he hits for everybody, doesn't really hit hard. Again, it does some cool things. Like whenever when you do it, like you get the buff immunity, which is nice, and then you also get a chance to have the 3 crit chance ups for the team, which is cool. But really just like a heavy support tune, and I think he, kind of reminds, I think we were talking about it earlier, like, of Dove, right? Like, great support tune can kind of help control a match a little bit. But, I'm out of all the tunes this month, he's absolutely, out of the reworks and everything, he's absolutely the lowest ranked one I have.
Yeah, as much as I love stuns, I was watching your videos and I was like, he seems like a worse version of Hawk, and I kind of like Hawk, but...
That's why I meant Hawk earlier, not Dove, sorry.
Yeah, he just, I don't know, 2D10 kind of compared him to him, and there's so many great green characters, so to have a spot as a green is going to be tough just to begin with, and then to have a spot that can take, if you're going to be a control tune, you got to do something unique. And I like the turn 0 stun. I'm sure in Siege that's going to be frustrating because he'll always stun the person you want him to stun least if you know not bringing protection. But he just, I don't know. I'm not that excited for him. I was even contemplating slow gearing him, but I don't think I'm going to do that. Since I'm not really competing this month, I'll just go slow with Eradicator.
Not that Blackfire is going to be everywhere, but it does strike me as a little unfortunate that they debut this character that provides so much shield to himself and his allies right after his character that immediately stuns and negates all shields. It's like they should have done it in the opposite order almost.
Yeah, that's a bit weird. What I don't like about him, actually, more than anything else, is his taunt, which he seems kind of squishy, so taunting seems counterproductive. He has no mitigation. And then putting taunts on the enemy characters, just reminds me of a crappier version of Jericho, which Jericho's not even that exciting to begin with, so...
Right. I will say, I'm here to kind of both provide lore and then kind of grade a little bit how they did with their kits. It actually, a lot of it does make sense to me. He wasn't known in the comics for hitting particularly hard. He's not a superpowered guy. Everything that he does just comes from his suits. He was never, ever supposed to be on the level of hitting as hard as Superman. And in this game, he probably doesn't hit as hard as Superman. So that aspect I think is accurate. I don't understand though anything about like the taunting. I think I don't know if there's like one particular game designer that is just excited about doing that, and then they did it back-to-back months or something. For me, I don't get how it fits with his character, the lore. I don't get how it fits in the game. I think that's really where he becomes problematic.
Any other thoughts on him, Burger, before we move on to Eradicator?
No. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that's kind of cool is he has a 50% chance to stun a random enemy, and there's been, I think out of all the times I've used him, I've seen it happen like twice. And but both times it was the person that if they were going to stun, that I was like, hell yeah, I'm glad they stunned him.
Yeah, that's nice.
So like Black Flash and stuff. So
all right, moving on to Eradicator. Zubaz, if you want to give us the history on Eradicator.
Yeah, here is how Eradicator is related to the state of New Jersey. No, I don't have anything for that. Well, okay, so the Eradicator at one point was in the Outsiders, Batman's Outsiders, and they're based out of Gotham City, which canonically in DC Comics is in New Jersey. So he's at least been there. That's the most that I can know. Eradicator again. He actually the concept of the Eradicator, which is one that I think a lot of people struggle with, like what the heck is he? Is he a guy? Is he a Kryptonian? He's like a machine weapon thing. Nobody has ever really well defined him. But that entity, the Eradicator, has been around actually for a couple decades, but then they kind of revamped it again for this Reign of the Superman. And that's when he gets like a very updated, very 90s look almost. That's when you read Reign of the Superman, it is like quintessential 90s with how Connor Kent looks, how, Superboy, how Eradicator, how all of them look. They're all wearing like sunglasses and leather jackets, and they think they're the coolest thing in the world. But so Eradicator, he is a weapon sent from Krypton. Some writers have used it as somebody to protect Superman. Some have used it to protect Krypton. He has a very, very convoluted backstory for sure. He does make his grand appearance there. He later goes on to do some work with the Outsiders. And then, he's appeared kind of sporadically throughout since then. He functions on the Outsiders with Terra's brother, Geoforce. They kind of have a long history together. In terms of powers, he has the same problem for me that Superman writers from the 1940s have always had, which is what do you give somebody that's supposed to be sort of a counterpart to Eradicator, to Superman. Superman has all the powers, so what do you give his enemy? Well, you give him all the powers. So he also, has super speed, has super everything. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Berger, on this, but he should filter as both a hero and a villain, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure. Let me.
Okay, yeah, I think he should. Which, for anybody wondering, he should be available in both the hero and villain blitzes. But that's because that's what he is. He's not. He's more like Black Flash, where he's not a hero, he's not a villain, he's not even an anti-hero. He's just there, and he has his own thing, and that's what he's gonna do. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good, and that's how he's kind of functioned for the last 30 years.
So, Berger, what do you think about him as just a character in general?
So actually, I really like him. I don't know if he's going to be somebody that I'm going to use in my lineup all the time. But when you look at like what he brings to the table, like he really does a lot of things, and they're generally pretty good. I love being able to open up with his 2, and having it where you move all buffs from main target. So you think of like some of the tunes out there, like whether or not it's a turn zero taunter that you need to get around quickly, and he's relatively fast, so he is going to go pretty quickly. And so you look at like trying to remove a turn zero taunt, and while at the same time being able to hit everybody else and do with special damage. And so love that. Or if like Azrael, trying to hit him early and purge Crusite, and it does a lot of damage to Azrael. And so I really like that. I like how you can use his 3, remove all positive immunities. So anybody has like death immunity or damage immunity, anything like that, like he's helping you get around that. And then with his 1, ignoring awareness, I think is awesome as well. So I mean, really, he does. And his 3 can't miss, right? So does a lot of things, and so I think he can plug and play well on any team, especially against a lot of the meta teams that we see running around with Azrael or Harley Quinn and stuff like that. So, or even Arcus, and so there's a lot that he does really well against.
Yeah, when I was looking at his kit, I really felt like he did a lot of things that you would want a character to do, especially in this meta. He's not somebody I'm super crazy about, but I acknowledge that he looks like he's going to be pretty good. And having, I saw in a couple of your videos where he just attacked so many times in a row.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
To be fair, you are running him under dark side a lot.
Yeah.
Difficult to tell.
But I mean, he'll attack twice normally, and then he attacks 4 times being buffed, and it's easy to be buffed.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, if he's buffed at all, which is, again, like almost anybody like that you have on your team is going to be able to do that. Like he's hitting twice, but yeah, under dark side, yeah, he's going pretty bonkers.
And he stacks up
when you're using him, because he has one of those where it's like if he is buffed, he attacks, but then also his attack automatically buffs. Does it trigger automatically? Is there any time it doesn't trigger? Like if he hits, I don't even know when it wouldn't trigger. If he has debuff immunity, I guess, or buff immunity.
I think he has to get hit. I don't think he gains it when he attacks. Yeah, I'm looking at his skills now. He's special damage to an enemy, attack twice if buffed, but it doesn't buff him on it like
on the 3
if he deals damage.
Yeah, on the 3 if the enemy dies, then he gets 2 intelligence ups.
But no, his second passive is if Eradicator deals damage, gain 3 intelligence ups.
It says received.
I'm
Second
looking at
passive.
the second.
His.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
His second passive is
Yeah, and it's 100% if you have it. Oh, okay.
So it seems like he should do that every single time.
He might.
I guess maybe if they have damage immunity, maybe it wouldn't trigger twice.
Yeah, I haven't tried it with the damage immunity, but I believe it does trigger all the time.
Or if they have awareness, maybe it doesn't work.
Well, he hits under awareness. So.
Oh, never mind. You're right. I'm 0 for 4 here.
It's okay. It's been a long day.
Yeah. I barely looked at these characters, to be honest. All right. One thing we forgot was legendary orders. Let's do Eradicator first, since we got him up. What are you leaning towards?
I like choosing his 3 first, removing all positive immunities with that, and then after that, I have his ignore awareness.
That's his basic.
Yeah, his basic. And then, and so a lot of this, like I try to do based off siege, just because that's generally when I'm using these. And then his five, I put 3rd. 50% death immunity on his 2, I put 4th, and then the 25% shield on teammate, I put 5th.
All right. And hang on 1 second. You had his 2 last, you said, or 4th?
His so his 3 first, 1 is 2nd, 5 is 3rd, 2 is 4th, and 4 is 5th.
I lost track for a second there. And how about Steel? What are you thinking for him?
I chose his 3 first for the gain crit immunity and apply to a random ally. 50% chance to stun random enemy at beginning of battle. I picked that second. That's his 5. His 1, the apply 15% shield on random ally. I picked 3. Then his 2, light damage to all enemies, apply buff immunity. 75% chance to apply 3 crit chance up. I put 4. And then if Steel is attacked without shields, counter using 1 just because his 1 isn't really doing any damage at all. I put that 5.
I think the thought process on him using the counter was just to get all the shields on his counterattacks.
Okay, makes sense.
I mean, it's still not great, but that's my guess is that's the logic.
Yeah, makes sense for sure.
And while we one second, and while we're just talking about it, what are your thoughts of the reworks? Either one of you guys, whoever has played them. I've barely touched them, so I don't have an opinion yet.
I love Ultraman, the rework. Yeah, I think having his 2 trigger early at the start, and I really like. I think he's probably the best tune of the month, at least from what I've seen so far.
I know people are really high on Zod, though, because he does a ton of damage. I haven't used him myself, but I've watched some streams, M4 and Josh, and they've been using Zod, and he is smacking reds and greens, it looks like.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I played with him a little bit last night, and I was using Zod as leader, and I was actually surprised that I was able to, compete against some of the meta teams. So he definitely seems like he's significantly better than he was.
Yeah, you can do a lot of damage just running Ultraman and Zod under Lex, and then at, like, 4th of your choosing at that point, like maybe whatever the matchup is. But those 3 together seem to be a really good combination.
I'm trying to think what I need to update their legendary orders. So what are you guys thinking for him? I'm kind of leaning towards probably his 1 first, maybe his 4.
For Zod?
Yeah.
I would take the leader last. I don't think it's quite as exciting.
Oh, I meant the 4 that can't miss on all attacks.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think whatever you have for the first 4, just the leader, I just don't think is quite as good.
No, I agree with that. I'm thinking I like his 1 just because if you could still use him if you not, but I guess if you're bringing him, you kind of want to use him for all that can't miss. So 1 or 4, I would think would be good because his 1, if he crits, then he does the heal immunity and the additional 30% damage. He does a lot of damage on his 1, a lot of damage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd probably go 4 just because that's the main reason to bring him. Then his 3, and then probably. Oh, not his 3, I'm sorry. His 2. And then probably his 3, and then his leader last.
Yeah, the shield makes sense. He does have relatively low HP. 2800 kind of puts him near the bottom of the pack, glass cannon type deal.
Yeah. And then let's do Ultraman, just so we can update this sheet so I can get you guys' opinion. I hated Ultraman, and I have to say that I was quite surprised at how good he seemed. He's got a lot of stuff going on. I'm guessing his 4 has to be first is what would be my guess, right? To use his taunt at the beginning of battle.
Oh,
yeah, I think most people want him as a turn 0 taunter now.
And then you're going to want to use his 2 so you can gain the overheal right out of the gate. Does that work on his turn 0? Where he gains the overheal? Okay.
It does. You can do it on his first turn, and again, like under Lex, because he gains all those buffs too. It's just like he's basically at full overheal on your first turn.
That's pretty awesome. And then his 3, applying the buff immunity to everyone. That's such a good ability.
Oh yeah.
I think buff immunity is the best debuff in the game. So the fact that he can do it on his AoE, and actually that's one redeeming bit about Steel, is they both have that AoE buff immunity.
Yeah, buff immunity is so strong, and Ultraman does like that move does a lot of damage. I one-shotted Azrael one of the matches when I used it just on turn, on his first turn. I was really surprised. Then I'm guessing his 1 before his 4. His 4 seems like it's still pretty good too, but which one do you guys?
Just take them all L5.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But no, I mean, I would go to the 1 just because I think the debuff transfer is kind of the name of the game for him. So it's like, you might as well amp it up as much as you can. And then if he's not, then you get that 5, crit damage down is always going to be helpful no matter who you're against.
All right. And for those of you listening to this far into the episode, leave a comment in the messages. I finally got my Blackfire graphic novel and forgot to auction it off before. So just leave a comment in the messages and you will be selected. And I'm pretty sure I have some Superman graphic novels. I might have Reign of Superman. I have to dig through it. But if I don't have that, it will be some Superman related graphic novel that I will also auction off. So I'll pick 2 from the comments, and if you're selected, I will message you for somewhere to mail it to.
Yeah, recommended reading this month. I would say if you really, probably just Reign of Superman. Start with the whole thing. Start at the beginning. Start with Death of Superman and go from there. If you want stuff that isn't Reign of Superman, Superman, I should say, for Eradicator, probably just his Outsiders run in the late 90s when he's on a team with, Geoforce and Katana. It's a pretty cool lineup. And then for something just totally offbeat for Steel, everybody knows I'm like a big kind of Mystic red-green fan, and Steel makes an appearance in the WROL New 52 Animal Man series. He is part of a really, really cool team with Beast Boy, Steel, Animal Man, and a character that I love that I wish would get into the game someday, Black Orchid. And they're just a really just odd job, wacko team that has a lot of fun, starting around Animal Man 13, I think, in the Rot World. So that would be my recommended reading this month, would be Rot World stuff, Reign of Superman, and you should be good to go.
Cool. Well, any final closing thoughts, Burger, before we sign off?
Oh, no. Just gotta hit raid some.
Yeah, we gotta get on that raids. We are we are currently
we're getting smacked around.
Yeah, we're currently behind. Are we still behind?
My
is the
goodness.
question. Hold on, let me look. We are
no comment.
we are 30 minutes past rollover. We're still down almost 4 million. So
Wow.
very unlike us.
Yep.
Burger, you need to go unwrap that Big Mac and get to work, buddy.
Yeah, I'm trying.
All right, guys. Well,
Cool.
Thanks for listening, and till next time.
All right.
Thanks,
For
guys.
having me.
Hey everybody, it's Tootitron. Thank you for listening to WROL Broadcasts. If you like the show, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/WROL Broadcasts. Hey, Kage, did you know that I'm now somebody's sugar baby? Yeah, his name's Kyle.